Welcome to After Nebrasketball, Iowa 97, Nebraska 87 in overtime. It was the worst night of my life. Let's talk about this shit. I don't really have anything to say. I mean, I have a lot to say. I don't really want to say it, though. So,
okay. I'll go.
Yeah, good. Please.
I think
I'll be maybe in the mood here after you get going a little bit.
There will be a lot of things that I know, Jack, like you have very strong feelings about one of the three things that I will say. Number one, Nebraska kind of didn't play great for long stretches of this game, especially in the second half. Built up a lead, kind of collapsed a little bit, came into this game shooting 77% at the free throw line, shot 12 of 22. In a game that goes to overtime, every one of those points matters. So Nebraska did not play particularly well in the second half. Number two, Iowa went freaking ballistic from three, especially Sanford. All right? That was part of that big comeback in the second half. That's just a thing that happened. That's the way Nebraska's defense is designed. And if a dude starts going off or a team starts going off and they made a lot of threes, Iowa took advantage. And number three, officiating was pretty garbage for, 45 minutes of the game. There was not a lot of time where the officiating was like, oh, I think this is a well-officiated game. There just weren't there were not stretches of that at all. And you got to overtime, Iowa's up by 11. And again, it was kind of a bad call. Finally went Nebraska's way. And the Hawkeye turds are friggin' booing. You're up 11 in overtime and got every call for the last 44 minutes. What are we doing with that? So those are my three. Nebraska didn't do themselves any favors. Iowa got red hot from three, and it was even tougher on everything because the officiating was garbage.
Bigelow, your thoughts after this game?
I mean, I'm not just gonna parakeet everything that Kaleb just said, but I mean, it's a lot of that. I mean, so many missed bunnies, so many they finished 15 of 27 on layups. That's 12. I mean, that's 12 missed layups. That's 24 points that you left out there. You left 10 points at the free throw line. You were once up by 15. And a team in Iowa that looked like they didn't want to be there at the end of the first half. Their body language was absolutely heinous. There's already hardly anyone in the building at Carver Hawkeye Arena, so it's not like the environment is what willed Iowa back into it. And that game is just, I mean, it's unfortunately a look back to what can happen when Nebraska's defense is not on its best game. Their rotations were not nearly as crisp. It felt like they were a step slow. Their closeouts were either a second too late or just like soft. And I'm not saying it, they're mentally soft. I'm just saying there's such thing as soft closeouts. Mm-hmm. There's hard closeouts and soft closeouts, and a lot of their closeouts were soft. And I know this is the last team we want to tip our cap to is Iowa. But, I mean, they went nuts. They went nuclear. I mean, that was unlike any 20 minutes I've ever seen, officiating aside, and the officiating definitely played a part. I don't know how you missed that double dribble. Fred Hoiberg looked like he was going to run down to Iowa's bench and hit stick Fran McCaffrey, and he had every right to, arguing that double dribble. And in a game between Nebraska and Iowa in basketball, you're like, what coach is going to show the most emotion on the sideline tonight? You're not saying Fred Hoiberg. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to, say Fred Hoiberg when the question is who's going to be the most animated. But, I mean, it's going to be, the thing about the basketball season is you just got to, this stings in the immediacy. If you're a Nebraska fan, it stings for everyone in and around that program. You got a head coach who's from Iowa, is an Iowa State grad. You've got a defensive coordinator who's from Iowa and is an Iowa State grad. You've got a guy who transferred from that program on the roster. You've got a kid who grew up there and knew everything about that rivalry. on the roster as well. So it's if you're a Nebraska fan watching this and you are thinking about how much it stings, trust me, there are plenty of people in that locker room, or if they're still in the locker room, cover Hawkeye, I doubt it, are on the bus that are stinging just like you are tonight.
For those who want to contribute, obviously, well, not obviously, you may not know this. We take comments from our Discord, our members on the Patreon. If you ever want to be a part of that, patreon.com/IID Club. That's how we make a little money to do this all the time and justify it. Sorry if you hate it. I don't care. Or you can super chat. If you super chat on YouTube, I'll read your comment too, unless it is super annoying to me, and then maybe I won't. Guys, answer me this. Help me with this. Peyton Sandfort, 6 for 10. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good 3-point shooter, shooting 32% for the year. Josh Dix. Peyton Sandfort wasn't the best 3-point shooter in this game.
He wasn't the leading scorer in the game.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
He felt like he was NBA Jam on fire for a half hour, and he wasn't the leading 3-point shooter or scorer in this game. Sandfort ends up going 6 for 10 from 3, 8 for 15 field goals, 8 for 9 from the line, 30 points. Dix, 7 for 10 from 3, 10 for 14 field goals, 4 for 4 from the line. He puts up 31. Freeman got 15 for them too. How in the hell could they not get those guys covered? What happened? Help me. Like, I can't. I'm the last, I don't know, 15 possessions of the game for Iowa. I am just watching Sandfort and screaming cover him. That's all I want to do, is not have him get an open shot. And about half of those possessions, he still did.
Yeah, it's almost like you would have wanted. Maybe it's when the game got tied, when it's 64-64, and at some point in that stretch. And Bigelow talked about the rotations being a little bit slower and it being a little bit softer on the coverage. Maybe Nebraska should have just went to, okay, if you're guarding these guys, everyone else, you're going to have to deal with it. There might be a backdoor. There might be a slip screen. There might be something. But that's, I mean, and that's why I said it. That's kind of the way Nebraska's defense is designed to get into scramble mode. I will say this, though, for those two guys, were there times that they hit open shots? Yes. Were there times that they hit shots that you're just like, what are you going to do? Yeah, they also did.
Yeah,
because they were legitimately on fire, like, because they just were hitting so many shots. I'll also say this, because someone had brought up that the fouls were pretty even, so it could not have been the officiating. All right, fouls were even, but potential fouls. Here's this one for you. There should have been a lot more fouls called on Iowa. If you judge officiating based only on whether or not the foul count was even or close to even, you're not just a casual. I don't even know if you understand the sport of basketball or sports in general, for that matter. If that is the line for where you are on if the officiating was good because the fouls were close. Also, you got to the end of the game and Nebraska had to foul a bunch just to get into bonus. And then you had Iowa do or attempt to do multiple fouls. Like, where the foul count was has no bearing in this game on whether or not the officiating was good. Juwan Gary got tackled. All right. You didn't just have Nebraska fans talking about this on social media. You didn't just have Iowa fans and reporters talking about Nebraska getting jobbed by the officials for much of this game. You had, in general, basketball fans across social media talking about how Nebraska was not on the friendly end of many, if any, whistles for 45 minutes.
Scott Docterman, athletic Iowa reporter.
Yeah.
Some have accused him of being a homer. I'm not saying that. He said this after, in response to a tweet by Go Big Redcast. He said, I say this with extreme impartiality, and I'm home, not there. I don't think I've seen a road team get screwed this bad in a long time. How they miss a double dribble and some of the fouls is ridiculous. So whatever. For the record, bad play, bad calls are not mutually exclusive. I've said this a million times. If you don't know it by now, you don't get cause and effect, right? They both play into the game. You can't say one did or didn't. Only one of them did change the outcome, or one of them didn't at all change the outcome. You don't understand cause and effect if you're saying that. They both did.
That's one of the reasons, Jack, that if you look at that run in the second half, I'm sure we could go back and look at from about the 15-minute mark to about the 5-minute mark. When over about those 10 minutes, there was a stretch where Nebraska shot 4 of 17 and Iowa could not miss from literally anywhere on the court. I am sure there is a stretch in there that there should have been 5 more fouls called on Iowa. And if you do the cause and effect, and there's more fouls being called on Iowa, and somebody gets in foul trouble and they have to change their rotation, well, it changes where somebody might be on offense, and it changes who might be where and shooting what shot. There's a lot of cause and effect that happen in the way a lot of those fouls should have been called over the course of that game, and they weren't. And now, yeah, that's completely on the other end of the floor, but that changes what happens when you go 50 feet the other direction. So you're right. There's a lot of cause and effect that happens that people just like to ignore because they want to look at a box score and say the personal fouls were close.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was all of it. It was all of it. It was the free throws. You're right. It was the officiating. It was the free throws. It was Iowa's inability to miss, and it was Nebraska's inability to make a layup. I don't know, Jacob. What did you make of just kind of the way? I mean, Nebraska ends up with 87 points in this game, right? Well, I'm overtime, but still, 87 points in this game. You knew that it was going to be a more high-scoring game because Iowa has kind of played that style so far. Your final numbers: Bryce Williams had 28, 10 of 20 field goals. You had 14 for Worcester, 6 for 9 actually in field goals, 2 for 7, 1 turnover. Then Juwan Gary, 5 for 21, 3 for 4 in free throws. Worcester was the biggest culprit in terms of the missed free throws, but I don't know. I don't even have a question at this point for you. Like, what? Just your thoughts as I go through some of those stats, Jacob.
I think a sequence in this game that isn't getting talked about because of how the second half went and overtime, obviously, and the disaster class of a start to overtime, is the last 3 minutes of the first half. Nebraska was up 8 with 3:06 to go in the first half, and they didn't score for the rest of the half. There was a moment where they tried to make their closing lineup to end the half. Raleigh Worcester, Sam Hoiberg, Cale Jacobson, Bear K, and Andrew Morgan. And the lead went from an 8-point lead to a 3-point lead. Thanks in part to 2 turnovers in the span of 10 seconds by one of those players that I just mentioned. And that was kind of, I think, looking back at it, Iowa, like I said, they looked like they didn't want to be there. And then all of a sudden they go into the locker room down just 3. And yes, in the second half, they were down by 15, but I mean, it just became I hate to say it, but it's the old school locker room. Like, we've got to maintain our composure. Like, that became like what it felt like in the second half. And Nebraska definitely did not maintain their composure. That's the understatement of the century talking about this game. Juwan Gary being 5 for 21 from the field. How many of those were at the rim? He had 8 offensive rebounds.
There were lot of shots at the rim for not just Gary, but like Gary was the biggest culprit, but there were a lot of shots that were around the rim.
Yes.
Now, could some of those have had foul calls? Sure, but there were a lot of shots around the rim.
With Gary,
like I said, they went 15 to 27 on layup. I mean, it's not gonna get it done.
Like, so with Gary, some of them were fouls, some of them were misses, but some of them, like that, when shots he should have made, some of them weren't great shots either, though. But God, there was a lot of like just wild ass, not really got your feet set crap right under the basket tonight.
Out of control a lot of times.
Bearcay had a little, I think one or two of the, I mean, it was mainly Gary, but Bearcay had a little bit of that too. Morgan, I think, had one of those. Worcester had some of those. It was just like, God, what is the deal here?
They didn't airball from 1 foot out, though. Iowa did that. We got that for us.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So I mean, like if there's one thing, if you want to be reassured about the season, and I'm not panicking about the season as a whole, by the way, I mean, if you can't tell, I really would like to not lose to Iowa going forward, this Iowa team in particular. But the free throws, right? It was just not normal, right? For Nebraska. It wasn't normal whatsoever. Iowa shot way better. Weirdly, Iowa's not a great free throw shooting team. Guess what? Tonight couldn't miss free throws, couldn't miss 3-pointers, couldn't miss with the officials tonight. None of it. Couldn't. It's like when you played freaking NBA Jam on the Sega Genesis circa, 1994, right? And you realized about halfway through the game, you're like, why do you keep coming back? I'm better than you at this. I played a lot more than you. And then you realize the computer assist setting is on. It's what it felt like during the course of the game after Nebraska got that lead and Iowa started to come back. Guys, are they utilizing Bryce enough on offense? I'm saying this after he got 28 points, 20 field goals. Somehow, to me, it still feels like they've got to figure out how to use him more. Am I crazy saying that?
Only sort of. I think it definitely will feel like they need to use him more when, as mentioned, Juwan Gary is 5 for 21 and 0 of 3 from 3. Connor Essegian is 2 of 7 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3. Raleigh, who I thought would be playing booty ball with Brock Harding as long as Brock Harding was on the floor, and then that just didn't happen at all in the second half. He has probably one of his better offensive games outside of those free throws, but there just was not much else going on offensively for Nebraska. They made 33 shots. Bryce Williams made 10 of them. They made only 9 threes. He made 4 of them. It becomes a question of, this was my biggest question about Nebraska, this Nebraska team coming into the season, is who's your second guy? And is your second guy going to be consistent night in and night out? And that's probably due in part to just how high and bullish I was on Bryce Williams coming into this season. But from a leadership standpoint and like an energy standpoint, it's going to be Juwan Gary. But there's no reason on God's green earth Juwan Gary should ever have 21 field goal attempts for this Nebraska team. There is no reason on God's green earth. And I don't care if it's all offensive rebounds. There's just no reason. That cannot be a recipe for success for this team. Doesn't matter what venue, doesn't matter who you're playing.
So there was, as I said, about a 10-minute stretch where Nebraska shot 4 of 17. Within that stretch, Bryce Williams went 1 for 4. Okay, not great. Juwan Gary went 1 for 8. There's a definite distribution issue that happened. On a couple of those, though, were miss shot, rebound, miss shot. Okay, that's 2 quick ones. You had that happen a couple of times. But if out of your 17 shots, you were to say 12 of them came from the pair of Williams and Gary, you're not saying 8 for Juwan Gary and 4 for Bryce Williams. Now, there are times that Juwan Gary does get hot. He hits a couple of threes, and you go, okay, things are going well, or he's got the ball late in a shot clock. But, Jack, I agree. He ends up with 20 shots. And the way everything ended up, and now half of his threes he also hit in about the last 65 seconds of regulation, because he hit a 3 and then eventually hits the buzzer beater to send it to overtime. So there's 2 of his 4 made threes. But his 20 shots easily could have been 25. And you move around some of that distribution, in a game that goes to overtime, and it feels like there are a lot of different things that could have happened before the end of the game, before you got there. Just like you shouldn't have shot just barely over 50% at the free throw line. So I think when you're identifying things that can be improved upon, Nebraska probably won't. The odds say, because of where their average is, Nebraska's not going to shoot that bad at the free throw line the rest of the season if they get over 20 attempts.
Yeah.
But, but also, if you're looking at things that you can control, absolutely, Bryce Williams, if you're in a stretch where you're shooting terribly as a team, has got to be the focal point.
Yes.
Has got to be the guy that you go to and say, get us out of this funk.
When things go to hell offensively, you've got to go to him. I've called him the drought buster. You've got to go from it. And then the other thing is, guys, Essien, he had more. I mean, he was 2 for 7 field goals, 2 for 6 from 3, had 6 points with those 2 threes. That's it. I remember one of the threes, but he didn't have an offensive impact in this game. And that's problematic against Iowa. That's really problematic against Iowa, in my opinion.
No, it definitely is. And I feel like I find myself, especially after these last 2 games, asking a question that I asked a couple times in the previous 2 seasons involving Keisei Tominaga. Can someone set a screen for this man?
Good Lord.
Can someone set a screen? Can someone set a screen away?
Get a play for him,
man?
Right? Get a play for him.
I know they draw up some of the CJ Wilcher plays for him, especially out of timeouts, baseline. We've seen that a couple times, and I think it was the second 3 he made. Someone actually did screen for him, and he had space. And I think that might have been the first one that I could remember in quite some time where he had that much space because someone set a screen for him. And I know that it was talked about a lot in the UCLA game, the attention that he brings defensively. That's how you go 0 of 6 from 3, and you're plus 24 and plus minus. Now, I don't think the world of plus minus, but I mean, he's gonna be getting attention as long as he's their top 3-point shooter. And Bryce Williams is their guy, and when you think that Essie's coming off the bench, it's like the classic high school cliche: shooter, what he's coming in to do,
right?
And it's just got to be there's like you've said, Jack. This is not a panic button. This is not a sky is falling type thing. The opponent obviously plays a part. How it went down obviously plays a part. But it just feels eerily similar to some games of yesteryear. It feels almost like that Minnesota game last year at the Barn, where they get their asses handed to them by Creighton, and they come out, lead by double digits, and end up losing by double digits to a team that was in the basement of the Big Ten. It feels eerily similar to that. And now they go from a road venue where they've lost 10 of the last 11. The Greasel team is the only team in the last 11 trips to Carver that's won a game in Iowa City. And they now go to the one road venue in the league where they've never won since they joined the conference on Sunday.
Yep. It's a good point. By the way, thank you, Theo, for the super chat. He says, thanks, After Nebrasketball podcast. We appreciate that.
Awesome.
Theo, this is the angry. I was more sad after Texas A&M last year, right? I've had games where I've just been sad or worried or concerned about the season. This is the most straight up angry I've been about a game since the last home loss for Nebraska in the Big Ten against Michigan State, right? Remember that one? 12-point lead. And then, that's the game, Jacob, that I thought about with this game was that Michigan State game when Michigan State outscores Nebraska 54-29 in the second half, and just completely goes off, shoots 55% from 3 for the game in that one. Remember, Joey Hauser absolutely went nuts in that game. That was kind of what I was thinking of, but nonetheless, just incredibly freaking frustrating. And thank goodness, you know what? Thank goodness I was one of Nebraska's double plays this year. and it's on senior night in Lincoln or senior morning. It's like Sunday at 11 a.m.
Oh yeah, it's one of those times of games at the end there.
Yeah, but in any case, couple of comments here from the Discord chat. If I can find my glasses, I saw D'Lo said, how many of those Gary baskets were putbacks, were rebounds, which then he missed again. Sorry, I'm paraphrasing D'Lo because I lost it, but that's basically what he said. Juwan Gary had 8 offensive rebounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Mickey replied
what in the world?
And Mickey replied to D'Lo, said a lot of Angel Reese to his game tonight. And that's
oh god.
There were a lot that were just right there around the rim.
It's like he expected to get I mean, I think a lot of times he expected a foul call and he didn't get it. Yeah. Is what it felt like to me.
Yeah. So there's that expectation, but that's one of the things that I tweeted out during the game. It was like, you're getting 3 shots at the rim on an offensive possession and not finishing it all and going to the other end, and someone's getting a wide open 3 in the corner, and you're like, well, that's not a recipe for winning the game. And even still, with that, you had opportunities. Like you got the game to overtime. Everything reset. And then a 9-0 run to open up overtime. And you just went, yeah, that's done. It's over. No, Nebraska can hit a couple of shots, but there's not enough time. Iowa can burn clock. I will say this also. Nebraska got to 15. I thought the offense got stagnant. There were times that they didn't start running the offense till 10 on the shot clock, which is not how Nebraska built the 15-point lead. Got really conservative, probably at least 5 minutes, if not 10 minutes too early. And there were also stretches, you talk at the end of that first half, Bigelow, where Nebraska doesn't make a shot for the last couple of minutes. There were people messaging me saying Nebraska should be up 40. Like
Cale Jacobson had a couple of
Yeah, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but being up 15 or 20 at halftime, I don't think would have been out of the realm of possibility, because Nebraska just stopped doing things for a while. Came out of halftime, went, let's go build this lead to 15, and then stopped doing stuff. I don't know where all of the getting super conservative on offense came from for those guys, when that's not how they built the lead. That's not why they had any success that they had.
And see, they kind of did similar in the second half against UCLA, where it felt like they were just running down clock and throwing something up and like, let's go play defense at the other end. For the record, I have found the breakdown of where Juwan Gary's shot attempts took place. I have found that. This is courtesy of Bart Torvik. As we mentioned, Gary finishes the game 5 of 21 from the field. He was 4 for 11 at the rim and 1 of 7 in the mid-range. 5 of 18 from 2, total 0 of 3 from 3. That is the breakdown of where Juwan Gary's field goal attempts took place tonight.
I feel like we should have a sponsor for that. Yeah,
that was a good radio voice from me. I will say that. That was a good ad read voice. Look at me.
You know what was weird? I thought Bearcake could have played more tonight.
What did he end up with for his minutes?
He wasn't in foul trouble or anything, was he? He ended up with 19 minutes.
One foul.
I thought he was playing well a couple of times. Why was he out so much tonight?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good question.
Must have been matchup dependent. I mean, that's a pretty good question. I think another thing that we haven't mentioned yet, Sam Hoiberg having to use up his fouls to get Iowa to the free throw line and fouling out in regulation after being, as I've affectionately labeled him, spark plug Sam Hoiberg, just making winning plays. He finishes, 6 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, 5 fouls and 4 turnovers. But I mean, I think not having him available in the extra period, probably, I'm not saying he changes the game completely, but I mean, his importance to this team and its energy, cannot be understated by any means.
I'll tell you what was interesting though about him, Jacob, is like my critique of him offensively this year has been he's not been aggressive enough. Sometimes he's not taking shots that were there. It felt like he was forcing things off the dribble during this game. Like I have never
Especially in the
felt that
first
way
half.
about him. He ended up. I got to look at his turn. He had a lot of turnovers. It felt like he ended up with 4 turnovers. He led the team in turnovers. Hoiberg did. Like there's part of the time where you're like, good Lord, do something, man, on offense, right? Make something happen. It felt like he was going the other direction. It was weird. It was so bizarre for him. And, when he did put it up, he had a fine night putting it up. He made a key 3 again. He's shooting pretty good from 3, had a layup. I know I can't remember what his other one ended up being. Had a single steal during the course of this game. And like Jacob was saying, got some boards, got some other things, but his turnovers felt like they kind of, that they stifled some offensive momentum that Nebraska had during the course of this game.
Here's this, as we talk about Sam Hoiberg and Bear K. Sam ends up with those 25 minutes. He couldn't play at all in overtime. Bear K didn't play the entire overtime.
Yeah.
He only played.
It's weird.
So what that means,
it's weird to me.
And I know they're not the same position, but it's two guys, and you wonder where the rotation is. But Sam Hoiberg played 9 more minutes than Bear K did in regulation. Like, was there something going on with him, or was it completely matchup dependent? Because I didn't think he was bad when he was out there.
Yeah, it was no fun. No, there was a couple times where I was like, okay, Bear K is creating a little bit of an issue for them offensively. And he didn't, he was 3 for 5 during the course of the game.
Yeah, who else didn't play in the overtime that I'm just now noticing in the box score? Andrew Morgan.
Morgan didn't either?
0 minutes in the overtime period. And that's after I thought he was pretty solid all around. I mean, he finishes 3 of 5, 8. He made his third 3 of the year, 4 boards.
Oh, I was yelling no when he took that.
Yeah, I was too.
That's a problem with this team. That's a problem with this team, though. Is how many guys on this team, when they take threes, are you yelling no? Morgan,
Juwan Gary, Worcester, sort of Bear K, sort of Sam, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Mia ever took one, I would do that.
Well, yeah, and I don't think this really impacted a whole lot of minutes, but Bear K fell on his back on one of those foul calls.
That's right.
That might have played a part. I don't know.
But I don't know how much that explains a lot of the minutes over the course.
That's a good call. DZ said that on the chat. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Cam says Mia was actually playmaking up tonight. The Mia thing is weird. Like, I don't know. I feel like they need to tweak the starting lineup. Like, is there?
By the way, Mickey is right. I called it a foul call. It was just a jump ball.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a foul. I mean,
yeah.
Among the unbelievably frustrating calls, that was up there. There was a guy where Iowa, the one that I didn't even see anybody talk about. There's an Iowa guy with on a bounced around ball at his entire foot out of bounds while possessing the ball. They missed that. Obvious double dribble. Gary getting run over. Bryce went in overtime, and they called a foul on Nebraska instead of Iowa, and it was so freaking frustrated. But frustrating, I should say. Yeah, but there is a part of me that it sometimes feels like at the beginning of the games, this was true of UCLA and a little bit of Iowa. I was like, good God, get a Season in, get Morgan in, right? Like, do you guys have that feeling in the first 5 minutes of games sometimes?
Yeah, depending on how the game is going, for sure, because like for a Season, if he hits one early, you feel like he's going to start to hit a few, and I know that hasn't necessarily been the case a lot lately, but I agreed with Bigelow that I thought Andrew Morgan, I really liked him on the offensive end on a few trips when he got the ball on the block and took a couple of
off the dribble.
Off the dribble, and went, okay, I don't have something, kicked it out, got the ball right back, reset, and went back to work. And I was like, well, I want to see that more. That's a part of the offense I think we need to see more. And Morgan's not getting the minutes. And then obviously I think we would have seen Morgan go in overtime had it not gotten out of hand immediately. because he wasn't going to go out there to shoot threes. He
Was
wasn't
Mia
somebody that was
that whole time. What was the lineup? I don't even remember. Who was the big in at that point? Because Berke was not. I don't.
Berke played 3 minutes. Mia played the other 2.
Okay. All right. Cam says, I don't care about the starting lineup. Honestly, I'm more worried about who finishes the game. Okay.
Well,
all I know is the last 2 or 3 games. I'm like, good Lord, get Morgan, get a season in. The offense is not doing anything at the beginning of the game.
You know who else is more concerned about the guys that finish the games? The head coach.
Yeah,
he talks about it. He talked about it the entire lead up to the season when people were asking about rotations and starters and all that, and he would immediately say, we've got a deep team, we've got lineups we can play with, but it's really about who finishes the games.
Here's my thing. Let me defend my point for a second against that. Is like I feel like a season needs to get in the rhythm. And Jacob, you're right. Like, and the commenter who said it on the live show chat was like, he's getting a little too Casey Tominaga. We're just taking just crazy long shots. But like, I feel like need to get him involved as a regular part of the. I want to see him and Bryce out there as the 2 scorers at the beginning and maximize their time together at the beginning of games and later in the game too. It's not just the end, but like, I don't know. I don't get it. I'd have him out there. Now I guess the question is, what do you change?
Here's the question on that is so let's say he's not starting, but he comes in a little bit quicker. Who's subbing out quicker? Obviously, on a night where you see Juwan Gary shoot -5%, you say, Juwan, get to the bench a little earlier, send some of those shots over to Asijan.
Yeah.
But is that what you're looking at? Taking some of your defense away?
Asijan plays 25 minutes tonight, right? Like, well, you got 36 for Gary, 35 for Worcester, 39 for Williams, 25 for Hoiberg as well. I don't know. I think it's time to figure out how to make Asijan a more consistent part of the offense, in my opinion. Like instead of someone that's completely streakily involved in the offense, or as was pointed out in the Discord, in order to get involved in it, has to be jacking up near half-court shots. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him instead of Gary taking several of these shots. I'd like to see him instead of Worcester sometimes taking some of these shots as well. So I guess that's what I'm saying. So I guess that's it. Let's see.
Sorry,
I formation.
I'm doing math. So just give me a second while I do.
I formation says kind of what Jacob said, and I said. He said it'd be nice to get Asijan more rhythm shots, like getting a quarterback some rhythm throws to get him into the game. It's exactly what Jacob said. Like last year, it felt like, they've got to. I mean, they've got Casey Tominaga who can't miss if he gets a good shot. I feel like other teams get guys open. How freaking open were some of the Iowa guys tonight, right? Like,
well, and in some of that is that not a lot of teams play this scramble drill defense that Nebraska does, where if you start to get those skip passes and guys get hot, it's just there. So yeah, like and the other part of it though is Fred Hoiberg is pretty unanimously known as an offensive genius. How do you not draw up enough things that go, he's going to be open on this play? There's no way for someone.
Iowa doesn't play defense. I mean, Iowa doesn't play defense.
How do you not get into a set and run someone off of an elevator screen or a flare or something and just go, he's going to be open. And if he's not open, someone is wide open in the lane for a layup. Like there's got to be a design you can do where you go, we're getting Asijan three shot attempts on the next 3 possessions. And if he doesn't have those, someone else is wide open. And that's just going to be the way the offense is working. And we're not seeing that happen. Like we're not seeing a focus on getting Asijan, trying to get him going early, because if he gets going, that makes things a lot easier on Bryce Williams.
Yep. That's another reason why I want him to at the beginning. I want those 2 in at the beginning of the game. You're talking about exactly what I was thinking.
Well, and it was in the Discord chat. Clint brought it up. Can Bryce play a little bit more point and take out Raleigh?
I'd be fine with that.
So, and that solves your problem of keeping Juwan in defensively. Clint also added that opens up the lane for Bryce to drive, get to the line, which would be nice. And
Guys, there are possessions when Bryce has the ball, and I'm like, do not pass it. Don't freaking pass it, Bryce. Like, come on, man. There were so many times tonight where I was like, dude, there is no way the guy across from you now, at least to getting into the lane, and they might crash on you, whatever, and you dump it out. But he can't, there's no way he can stay in front of you. Why I don't know why we didn't see more of that. Maybe I'm overestimating his ability to take these guys, but I would have liked to have seen that just a ton more tonight.
Well, you saw Raleigh
get fouled. I know
you saw Raleigh do it. Why couldn't they?
You saw Andrew Morgan do it.
There's all of these guys that went, here's a matchup that I like. Guys, there aren't a lot of dudes in the Big Ten that I'm going to say that's a matchup I don't like for Bryce Williams. Like, people are recognizing what he can do scoring. So especially if he gets one that people are going, he should probably take this guy. We should probably see it more.
He's going to have to keep shooting
during droughts.
He's going to have to keep shooting a hell of a lot more for me to ever say he's not shooting enough or driving enough. Like, I don't know what that limit is, but I want to find it, Jacob. Like, I don't know. I'm ready.
Yeah. So to answer what I was just doing math about, I just did some Connor Essegian 3-point math. I split his season into bye games in Hawaii, and then Big Ten games, Creighton and St. Mary's.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
What do you think he finished the non-con with in bye games and Hawaii percentage-wise from three?
74%.
Not quite that high. I would say more like 55.
45%.
Okay.
What do you think he has shot so far in Big Ten games plus Creighton and St. Mary's from three?
13%.
28%.
Well, we were way extreme on both of them.
I'm too far both ways.
There is a 17-point percentage drop off. Now, obviously, the sample size is different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 9 bye games plus Hawaii, and then Big Ten plus Creighton and St. Mary's is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 games. So, I mean, that's the little different sample size, obviously, but I mean that's you could attribute that to scouting, you could attribute that to personnel or just talent in opposition, obviously, but there has been a stark contrast in his shooting numbers between Big Ten opponents where they know him, they're familiar with him, he's been in the Big Ten, but he's not a stranger, and then Creighton and St. Mary's, obviously. I mean, St. Mary's isn't a Big Ten team or a Big East team, but that's the other most significant game of the season. So that's why I included that in those splits. So that's a little stark different.
Yep. Yeah. And it goes back to my larger point is, right, even though Iowa's offense not being able to miss and putting up a huge second half was really the problem in this game. My largest concern still for the season is the offense not having enough options. Like that is going to be my concern, my biggest concern going forward. It'll continue to be. And when Bryce isn't taking enough opportunities, or is having problems, or is in foul trouble, or isn't getting foul calls, and Juwan's having a night like tonight, like the team is capable of going on some massive freaking droughts. And that is still the biggest thing that is going to bury this team during the course of this year when they have problems, in my opinion.
Well, and you had to have Bryce shoot over 50% in regulation just to get it to overtime. So like that's someone shooting over 50% is not sustainable unless they are 7 feet tall and all they do is shoot within 5 feet of the basket. Like that's why you see those field goal percentage. You're like, wow, that guy's shooting 70% on the season. Okay, he's dunking it 9 times out of every 10 shots he takes.
Well, or if you're a doofy looking guy from Iowa with gray hair, but yeah,
there's also that. But yes, it's just to get to overtime, you had to have Bryce Williams shoot over 50%, and then he goes one 1 of 6 in overtime and finishes shooting just at 50% to get you to that point. You're right, Jack. What are the other scoring options you've had over the course of the year more from Juwan Gary than what he did percentage-wise tonight? You've had those other games where Connor Sejan has hit threes at a good clip, but he hasn't done that against the good teams on the schedule.
Yeah.
So where's the scoring? What is it? Do you need more minutes? And it's got to be Andrew Morgan. Is it? Do you need more from Raleigh Wooster? Like, he's not a scorer. That's
scoring.
That's
no,
not what he's supposed to do.
No.
Or like in his bag. But who is that guy? They're going to keep searching for it. They have to, because if anyone steps into that role, this team is extremely dangerous because of what they can do defensively. But there's not that guy right now. It's Bryce Williams and whoever else happens to score that night.
Yep. Yeah, and it's interesting because you keep bringing up the stats of how many baskets Nebraska is assisting on, yet somehow it does feel like guys have to kind of go rogue, right, to get their points so frequently. Like, Bryce has got to go take on the world, or you've got to have Morgan get that one-on-one matchup, and which he's done pretty well with, but just go in, right? Or you've got to have a Sejan find his own shot, basically. Like, that's the problem with it doesn't feel like a team effort on offense as much as it did sometimes the last couple of years. You know, part of the reason is you had Casey and Derek Walker, right, working the inside outside stuff, but I know they're assisting on plays, but it doesn't feel like it, guys.
Well, and it was under 50% tonight. It was over 50% in the first half. It was around 33% in the second half, and it was 25% in overtime. So like it was a steady decline as the game went on.
Yeah. And Hoiberg was your assist leader tonight with 3. So
yeah, it was spread around a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess final thoughts. Like I said, like I'm not freaking out. There were just so many things about this game that were huge deviations from the norm, whether it was the free throw percentage, whether it was Iowa's 3-point shooting percentage, whether it was the officiating. There was obviously problems too. I'm not saying they played great, but it's not, for me, a panic game. Especially you did take him to overtime, like, yeah, which it helped to build up whatever it was, 15-point lead or whatever. But that made it possible. But boy, I thought Bryce hit that shot, and when he hit that shot, I thought, okay, the breaks are over, right? They got all of the breaks during the end of that second half, and it obviously it somehow got not only worse but way worse in overtime, like way worse. But you go now to Purdue, guys, and Kaleb will be doing our show here on Friday, so I'll be kind of interested in Jacob's take here about, you know, this next little stretch that Nebraska's got. And we've said, and I'm sure you agree, Jacob, just this first half of the schedule is, I mean, it's a lot rougher than the back half of the schedule, to be honest, when you look at it. But at Purdue on Sunday, 11 a.m., then you got Rutgers in Lincoln, then you're at Maryland, then you got USC in Lincoln, just kind of taking that chunk of 4. What do you think Nebraska needs to do in that little chunk here now when they're 2-2 in the conference at this point? They find themselves 500 with those 4 games to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything below 2-2 would be disappointing. Obviously, I think with the 2 teams that are coming to Pinnacle Bank Arena being 2 teams that are kind of flirting with, in my opinion, not making the Big Ten tournament, despite the talent that both teams have in USC and Rutgers. And then obviously 2 tough road games. Maryland has looked a lot better than I expected them to start the season. Still don't trust their coach. I'm not going to name names. Still don't trust him long term. But they're a real physical punch in the face team. They play like a Big East team. All the Big East cliches. It's almost like that coach I don't trust came from the Big East. But so that'll be Maryland in a couple weeks. And then I kind of gave this hot take going into this game tonight that I expected Nebraska to lose this game And I kind of like the matchup on Sunday more than I like the matchup tonight. Like, I kind of just looking at the personnel on that team, and I know people were thinking, what the hell is this dude talking about? Purdue's won 25 in a row at Mackey and like all that. And I'm like, you know who was on the team when they won a lot of that 25 in a row at Mackey? Zach Edey. You know who's not on this Purdue team this season? Zach Edey. You know who they came into this season with 2 7-foot-tall guys? They don't have 2 anymore. They just have 1. But Nebraska is going to far and away be the bigger team on Sunday.
Wow.
1 through 5. They're going to be the bigger team 1 through 5 with Purdue. And it's going to be a pretty interesting matchup. And as I alluded to earlier, that's the only arena in the conference where Nebraska has not won since they joined the league. Am I going to say flat out that they're going to win? No. But I think in a bounce back spot, and this team, since the evolution under Fred Hoiberg has come to light, they seem to be at their best in bounce backs, like where they get punched in the face and how they respond. And once again, I'm not going to flat out like make the call like they're going to go to Mackey and snap a 25 game home winning streak, because that's far and away the toughest venue to play in the Big Ten, without question, in my book. And it'll be interesting to see on Sunday for sure.
And if that would work out, Jacob, that would erase the piss out of this night very quickly.
It absolutely would.
Oh, and not only that, but here's the fun thing about that. Purdue is one of the 4 teams with a longer home winning streak than Nebraska in college basketball right now. So you go ahead,
knock one off, and then it's just Houston, UConn, and Iowa State. Who knows?
Indeed.
Who knows?
And,
it would change. That's the nice thing about these road games, guys. Like, you're gonna have several shots. You don't have to get them all. You got to get like 1 or 2 in these. Yeah,
and like the thing with this Purdue team, since I won't be on the brunch show to talk about Purdue, like I'll go Belichick. We're on to Purdue. Looking at their team this season, they got 3 guys who average in double figures. Their next highest scorer averages 6 points a game, and it's their one, and it's, no, Daniel Jacobson's out for the year. He only played in 2 games. Their next highest scorer averages 6. Kaufman Wren is 6'8". Like, he will try to, play inside. He doesn't take a lot of threes, but he's still shooting 42%. Like, it's going to be a game that comes down to threes again. But, Nebraska's going to have the size. Like, they're going to have the size advantage. Braden Smith's a damn good player. He's not 6'4" and built like a linebacker like Raleigh Worcester is. Fletcher Lawyer, he's
we know.
Is he going to guard Bryce Williams? No,
I don't know. Okay.
Plain and simple, he's not.
Josh, so, you're right, but Bryce has got to take freaking advantage. No, when you see that dude in front of you, go in, man.
He does.
Your eyes should get big.
No, I totally agree.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Bryce right now. If he's listening, I don't know if he is, but if he is, Jacob, you're exactly right. He's got to do it. They get mismatches with him. He's a great scorer. Treat him like it. This offense has got to treat him like a great scorer. Okay.
Absolutely. And like outside of those guys I mentioned in Kaufman, Wren, Lawyer, and Braden Smith, obviously preseason Big Ten Player of the Year, who is a joy to watch, but he is undersized and he is, he's a good player. He's damn good, but I don't think like he's gonna single-handedly, win the game. I'm gonna eat those words probably, but the rest of Purdue's team, like looking at it, I'm just like, they're not the Death Star that they've been the last couple of years. Mackey might be.
He's no Peyton Sanford. I'll say that.
Mackey might be, but Purdue is, and I'm not trying to talk people into Nebraska beating Purdue. I'm just saying the matchup, looking at it, I liked it more than the matchup tonight.
I don't want to miss this season, but there's a part of me that wouldn't be disappointed if I woke up tomorrow morning and it was March 9th, and I'd be ready for Iowa to come back to Pinnacle Bank. And
you want to get them again right now.
I cannot wait till March 9th.
Do they need to get Do they need to get Thor on the jet from Iceland?
Yes, that's a great call.
After the last time,
that's a great call.
Iowa
Get
came to
Thor
PBA
down
on
there.
Senior Day.
Somebody pay, dude. They paid to fly in Nuri Nuwuli from Germany to the bowl game. Why can't we do that for Thor for this Iowa game? For the Juju
make it happen, Matt Rule.
I don't know where the Iceland soccer scarf that he gave me once upon a time is. It's around here somewhere.
Get Thor there, you cowards. Find some money. Somebody in that university has some freaking frequent flyer miles. That wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah,
Do it, jerks.
Yeah. Send the Husker jet, the Husker PJ to Iceland to pick up Thor and bring him back.
Nebraska better statistically at blocking shots and rebounding than Purdue. Let that sink in.
Yes.
Like I said, they're going to be the bigger team. Nebraska is going to be the bigger basketball team than Purdue.
You know what? So wake up tomorrow. It's done. It's over. Right? This was it's a lottery ticket. Road games are a lottery ticket in the Big Ten. Right? You got it. You're gonna have to get a couple. You're gonna have to get a couple. You have to get more than that if you lose home games. But if you miss the first one, hey, there's another game of Keno coming up in 30 seconds. Get your numbers circled.
Yeah.
No. Absolutely. There's some bugs on the windshield. Get the squeegee out. Wipe it clean. You're on to Purdue. Get the squeegee out. Burn the tape. Bury it. Office space. The copy machine. Whatever you got to do. You're on to Purdue, Jack.
Do we just have the best 30 seconds of analogies in YouTube history right now? Amazing.
You guys did good.
Alex on the Discord says pick 20, hit 0, win 600. All right, that is it. That is it for After Nebrasketball. I'm ready to go to bed. Okay. I'm less mad than when we started this, guys, and I credit you too for that. I appreciate that. I
can tell from almost 5 years of being in a studio with you on radio, I can still feel your emotions even through the webcams here, and just physically, you look less sick right now and more ready to go. Obviously for Iowa, but also Purdue on Sunday. And like Bigelow said, we'll have a Nebrasketball brunch Friday at 11 in this same bat place.
That's right. Friday brunch. Kaleb and me will be there. We'd love to have you guys watch it. It's free for everybody. If you want to discuss with us in the live show chat like our studio audience did today, please go to patreon.com/IIDclub. You can also do the super chats if you just want to do that on YouTube. And then, guys, Sunday, put us on your second screen while the NFL's going on, right? There's some NFL games going on. The tip-off for the Purdue game will be at, isn't 11 game?
Yes, 11 a.m.
Man, that's gonna be a sleepy
on
place,
the Big Ten Network.
Is that gonna be sleepy? I guess they're at Eastern time zone, maybe, so noon for them. Some of their fans are going to want to stay home and watch football, right? The Colts in the playoffs? I guess not.
Hell no, Jack. Hell no. They are not.
Ask Pat McAfee about the Colts.
I will. Yeah.
D'Lo just called Sanford meth Woody Harrelson.
Jesus.
All right. We've clearly reached the breaking point for the
we've reached time for bed. If
all
you
right.
can tell by these bags under my eyes, I don't sleep.
Yeah, we went an hour tonight. tonight.
And Michigan blew an 18-point lead to UCLA. UCLA now leads in LA with 10 minutes to go. So I'm going to go watch that and continue to not sleep. But this was fun, guys.
Let's make that,
thank you for doing this. And after how that basketball game went, this is about as fun as it could have been. So
let's go. Yeah. Let's make that quad one win, quad one ear. All right. Hey, see you guys later. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't to the YouTube page. You're on I-80 Club, Husker Max, and both of them. And we will see you Friday for Nebrasketball brunch with them, but whatever the hell that show's called. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.